Now I'm very excited to welcome back a man on fire in the sports betting industry, and Mr. Will Hill from VSiN and the Gold Boys Discord. You can follow him on Twitter at not the Will Hill. Will, thanks for coming back on the show, my man. How the heck you doing this week?
Kev, what's going on? We were just talking before we went on the air here that everything seems so crammed. Baseball season sneaks up on you with the Super Bowl being in mid-February as opposed to, when we were kids, it was end of January, somewhere in the last few days of January. There was always a long wait. It felt like till March Madness, and then it was baseball season. Now everything's just crammed together, which I don't mind. There's really no dead periods. I guess these few days after the Elite Eight and before the Final Four, before opening day, is a little bit of a lull, but it just goes right. NCAA tournament, Masters, baseball season, NBA playoffs. So it's a good time of the year. Weather gets a little warmer here on the East Coast. Days get a little bit longer. So it's a really great time of the year.
Oh, it's an amazing time of the year. It's just the weather really gets a lot of people going here in the spring, especially when it starts to warm up in some of those middle states, and finally it hits the Midwest at some point. So right now it's pretty cold out east, and we'll get into a little Major League Baseball now that you mentioned it. And yeah, it's bittersweet, almost the end of football happened and the end of March Madness, but then we have a lot of fun coming up with some of these other sports. But I also want to give you a huge shout out here for calling FAU going to the Final Four, man. How the hell you do it, Will?
I mean, this is the sickness of a bettor, though. You hit a bet like that, and everyone congratulates you, and it does feel good. And then you think, man, I could have put a lot more on it. Why did I only put this much on it? So it does feel good. It was a fun team to follow. I thought the winner of that FAU Memphis game, which that game easily could have gone Memphis. I mean, you certainly caught a break there. I certainly caught a break there. I just thought the winner of that game could beat Purdue, and as it turned out, they didn't have to beat Purdue. So I thought the bracket was sort of open. I really liked Florida Atlantic's guards. I liked the coach. So I didn't hear too many people picking them. Just a few shows I had heard before I, went on the air the next day. I was, what? Too many people are picking Memphis. I'll be a little different here. Go with Florida Atlantic, and again, sitting here regretting how much, what could have been. It was 40-1. I could have put so much on it. I would have made this much. It's just, I'm sure you've been there too. You just drive yourself crazy. You never have enough on the winners.
No, you never do. You never do. It's always like, I'm going to put a quarter unit on this, ink a little bit. It's like, wait a minute. I like that a lot. The price was way off at 50-1. What am I doing? Yeah, absolutely. It's kicking yourself in the back is a very common thing and common practice that we do here in the sports betting world. So, but still, man, I mean, you called it. It sounds to me that the way you just explained it is you like not only the team, but you like their position in the bracket. And in hindsight, yeah, I mean, Memphis coming off the big American Athletic Conference win, that's usually kind of a down thing coming into a tournament after all that exhaustion, beating the number one Houston team. Purdue, the very vulnerable one seed, you saw that ahead of a lot of other people, and guys like me kick myself a little bit, but it sounds like you nailed that perfectly. And so huge congrats to you on that aspect, man. And congrats to Conference USA in general, because, I mean, they're in the finals in the NIT tournament, right?
Hard to believe. And they won they don't do the CIT anymore. I think it's the CBI. They won with Charlotte, and then they got both finalists in the NIT, and here they are in the Final Four. And that conference is sort of breaking up. I'm trying to think top of my head. Where is Florida Atlantic? Where are these teams going? I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, God. I think a few are going to the
is it the AAC?
Yeah, the American Athletic Conference. Okay. A few are going to. I thought one might be moving to Atlantic 10 for basketball. I don't know. I have to relook at that.
It really is hard to keep up with the teams and the conferences. Yeah. Like, again, back when we were younger, these teams were more or less just in their conference for a long period of time. Now it's just like you turn around and there's 6 teams that flock somewhere else. It's really hard to keep up with.
It's insane. And then you see you got one in the Final Four, 2 in the finals here, the NIT. NIT is the next step down, higher than the CBI. So it's just it blows your mind how good they were. And of course, my Badgers, if I didn't know this basketball team, Will, I would have said that they put a big bet on the under during the game here, not scoring a point in over 9 minutes left to go. But I got it, and I had the over 114.5. The live total was at 140.5 at one point.
Yeah. Oh, even higher.
Yeah. It's just despicable is not even a way to describe it. But I hope, and Greg Gard has had his success there. But look, we're looking for bigger things here. No more NITs. We want NCAAs. You got the money out there in Wisconsin. I hope he gets the backing from an NIL perspective, because He's on a short leash right now, Will.
Yeah, I mean, you go 10 minutes without scoring a point like that. I mean, not only is it not good, but it's just boring. You don't want to be bad and boring. And they're not a bad team. They could have, a win here or there. They could have made the tournament, man. Imagine if you were watching it with your friend, though, and said, man, I'll give you whatever, what odds would you give me Wisconsin with 10 minutes to go is not going to score another point? You would have gone broke. It's just, there's no such thing as a lock. It's just hard to believe you could go that long without scoring a single point. And they had the game tied. I thought, it was like a broken play with 5 or 6 seconds left. They had a 5-on-4 or 4-on-3. They had the numbers. It looked like they had a layup to tie the game, go to overtime.
Which would have hit my over.
They called the timeout. Yep, absolutely.
I want to say,
maybe would have hit your over. It might have been 1-0 in overtime. You don't know.
Yeah, one free throw. So, but I said that the gods didn't want it to happen for me. Is the only way I could look at it and justify this madness here that just happened. I posted the graph of the probability of that thing going under throughout the game, and high at the 99% level, and then just the very tank at the last second was just very interesting.
Even
watch.
Fran Fraschilla, who was doing the game, who doesn't really, he's not a betting guy. He's an old school, basketball guy. He's like, hope you didn't bet the under tonight. This baby's going over. And they were playing so fast early. They were hitting every shot, and he mushed it.
The jinx was in, my friend, and that's exactly what it was. But at the same time, I'm going to give you a nugget, being a Badger fan, that I already know of. The last 10, 11 minutes of their game versus Michigan, they had no field goals. And it was like only two or free throws maybe. But they only scored like 2 or 3 points the last 11 minutes of that game. And they still won it because they were up by like 25, but they almost lost it. It was just, I guess if you look at it like that perspective, this crap has happened before. But, now we have a Conference USA final here. And I guess, without too much of a plan, I wasn't going to bring it up. But now that it's here, did you handicap this game yet? North Texas versus UAB? It looks like UAB is a little bit of a favorite, -2, and a total of 128.
I could see that. I mean, people look at it and think this UAB team beat Florida Atlantic, and that win obviously has aged nicely. So, I have to dig more into how these teams matched up in the regular season. So I haven't completely handicapped it, but first lean would certainly be towards UAB on the money line. That Walker's a hell of a player, and if that they were in the NCAA tournament, they would have been live to beat somebody. It's too bad they only were a 1-bid league, but I would probably lean UAB here.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, obviously now you look at some of the at-large teams from the Big Ten and a few other conferences, and UAB probably could have beat all of them. It's like, they got it wrong. Of course, scheduling plays a part in that as well. But
I think they were favored against Florida Atlantic in the Conference USA title game. I'm pretty sure too, 1.5 or something.
Really? Was it that? Or I can't remember.
It's only a point and a half, but I think they were favored. I think the thinking was Florida Atlantic's in no matter what. UAB needs to win to get in. I'm pretty sure that was the line, though.
That makes sense. I'm trying to remember back. Yeah, Florida Atlantic beat UAB by double digits there, but UAB had a great season in general. And yes, Jordan Walker's only 5'11", but a fantastic basketball player there. And I expect huge things for this team going forward. Hopefully, I know they have a lot of seniors, so that's your worry, but UAB has been relevant for a few years here. Yeah, I'm not touching this one myself. I can see it going a lot of ways. Yeah, I think the total's actually priced pretty well at 128 as well. So, I mean, this is North Texas. If they grind it out like they did versus Wisconsin, I find that interesting. But you said you're kicking yourself for maybe not putting more money on Florida Atlantic, but what if they win it all? And then you're really going to be kicking yourself, my friend. So, let's look at this game here. Florida Atlantic is +2 against San Diego State. And San Diego State, obviously the monstrous defense. The total of this is 132. Obviously, from an officiating standpoint, we don't have to get into that, but there's a lot of controversy over that game. But at the same time, Creighton wasn't winning. It's like maybe San Diego State would have won in overtime anyway, is kind of the way you got to look at it. And that defense is legit. They stopped Alabama. They stopped a very tough Creighton team. But at the same time, Will, the way I don't have a play on it right now, but the way I'm kind of looking at it is Florida Atlantic has seen these tough defenses before, because North Texas is a tough defense for one. And they played against Tennessee, in the NCAA tournament here. Memphis's defense was good. Not like they haven't seen this, and God forbid, if they shoot just a little bit better than Creighton did, maybe get a few fouls their way, I might be a player on Florida Atlantic if this thing goes up a little bit. What are your thoughts?
I think you talked me into it. I don't know if I can jump off the Florida Atlantic bandwagon. Now, the thing is, they haven't even played perfect. They turned the ball over a ton. I thought Kansas State, the Elite Eight game against Kansas State on Saturday, they're up 4 at the half. They could have easily been up 12, 13, whatever, if they just took care of the ball. They turned it over so much, whipping the ball out of bounds, offensive fouls, you name it. And they haven't shot the three great. They've made timely threes, but Tennessee, they didn't shoot it well. If you look, they really haven't shot it well at all. It's the age-old question. When you look at San Diego State, they've held opponents in this tournament to 17% from the three-point line. Is that luck? Is that variance? Is it they're really good defending the perimeter? It's probably a combination of the two. But I'm with you. I like Florida Atlantic here. I think the best bet is probably for me the first half under. I don't know if these halftime lines have started to pop up. I just think we're playing in a football stadium. It's a massive arena. There's some nerves. There's some jitters. You're going to get max intensity on defense. You're going to get these teams a little more, methodical on offense. So I would look at the first half under, and I think, imagine the Florida Atlantics here in a championship game on Monday night. We're looking at it where it's a toss-up game here, and I kind of think we're going to get it. I like Florida Atlantic here.
Yeah, it's 61 juice to the under at -120, and so it's out there. It's a very low number. What's funny is both of these teams technically play a little faster, but and then again, it's hard to buy into that because you're looking at conferences that are inferior. Right. It's like, would they really play that fast if they're in the Big 12 and the SEC in the Big East? Probably not. So definitely got to factor that in. Yeah, Ken Palm's got the under at 143 or 133. And the actual total in this game is, I believe, around the 120 or 132 mark. Yeah, I'm going to lean to the under for both halves. I would lean to the total under as well because one of these teams can go absolutely flat, and San Diego State will go into scoring droughts. So I'm going to wait on this one a little bit, though, from a side perspective. Like I said, give me a 2.5. I'll probably be a player on Florida Atlantic here. Why not? If I'm late to the party, oh well, Will. I might as well jump in. It's better than having them to have to play, a team that's, like a UConn or a Houston where, you're going to get a bigger spread. But I would think that maybe they would get outclassed in that situation. So the football stadium is something that people really have to remember because the backdrops are very dark in those stadiums, aren't they?
Yep, absolutely. And again, if you don't get your number, you can just watch the game, wait for a live opportunity. If it's 5-2 San Diego, it's amazing how quickly these numbers can move, or you'll get a 2.5, you might get a 3. If it's 3-0, these numbers move right away where you sit here all week staring at your screen, hoping for a number, you never get it. And then like 30 seconds, 90 seconds into the game, it goes a certain way. You can get your number, maybe even a better number.
Yep. And that's what you do. And that's how I've hedged some of my plays throughout the last couple of weeks. Well, actually, I do that frequently, but I'm more public about it when it comes to the tournament. I took a Kansas State live over, and that thing hit because you saw a lot of fouls coming on in, and sometimes you see the refs really let them play for that last San Diego State Creighton game. For most of that game, except the very end, obviously, they were letting them beat each other up. So then you take a live under. So, we'll be vocal about that as well. So good stuff. Yeah, definitely live if you don't get your number because you will. If these teams are trading blows up by 5, down by 5, up by 5, you're going to get your number.
You're going to get your number. Yep, absolutely.
It's much better way to take it. Let's move on to the next game. Miami versus UConn. UConn -5.5 total, 149.5. And, well, when I had Gonzaga winning it all last week, I mentioned that I wish I could have changed it to UConn, and I did bet UConn. It's like it was such a great looking bracket until Texas lost, until UConn lost, until Creighton lost, because I still had them in my Final Four. Then it was absolute dump city for me in that situation. Thank God that most people are out. I actually still might take second in a few of my brackets here, but this situation, I think UConn is by far the better team than all these. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure UConn's not the best team in the whole NCAA after seeing how they're handling some of these teams in their class. Now, what I did is I took UConn pre-flop Final Four. As soon as Texas lost to Miami, I didn't think that they have much competition. I took them -125 to win it all, Will, and I put a pretty decent sized bet on that. So I don't need to bet this game from that perspective, but here we are at -5, 149.5. What are your thoughts?
Yep, I'm totally with you. I don't like laying points in this tournament. I think the much better bet is UConn. I think Circa had like a -110 on them versus the field. I just think for all the reasons you mentioned, they're bigger, they're better than everyone. It's weird. They've had sort of 3 seasons here. Remember preseason, pre-conference play, they're just killing everybody, killed Alabama up in Portland, just dominated that tournament. They got into conference play. They really didn't play well. They lost a bunch of games. It looked like this team could be like trending towards the bubble at one point. I mean, they really played poorly for a large stretch. They got their stuff together the last, I would say, month of the regular season, and they've just taken off. Remember, they didn't even win their conference tournament. Marquette beat this team in the in the Big East semifinals, and boy, they've really hit and really to further on that point, they were losing Iona at halftime in the first game. Iona looked like they were going to give them a hard time, but man, they have a different gear. They blew Iona out. St. Mary's was competitive for a minute. They blew them out, and it's weird. It's sort of the inverse. Usually, if you have 2 blowouts early, then the games get harder. They had 2 sort of, games that were close early where they just pulled away, and the games have gotten easier and easier and easier. It looks like the varsity versus the JV. I don't see any reason to think differently here against Miami. Miami has all sorts of issues on defense. They're small. I know their guard play is really good. Larinaga knows his way around these tournaments, but I think UConn rolls here. I expect like a UConn, 10, 12 plus point win. I think UConn wins again.
Yeah, probably. And great point about laying the points because, you had Texas up by 16 points against Miami. Then fouls started coming
What
in,
a
man.
meltdown that was. My goodness.
Yeah, it's 2 things that happen. The team's prone to choking, and if they're not getting the fouls and the other team is, it just almost like exponentially builds against you, and boom, all of a sudden you have a tie game, and that's exactly what happened in this situation here.
And so I think I think Texas not having the big guy too to protect the rim was a big thing too.
Disu, correct.
Absolutely. He was out because Miami got a lot at the rim. You're not going to get a lot at the rim against UConn, so I thought that was a big factor.
Yeah, it was a big factor, and Miami is led by guys that are seniors. Guys like Wong, guys have been there before, Jordan Miller. And so I think that's why they got this far, but I think this is kind of where it all runs out. But 5.5, not in this tournament, not the way this tournament's going.
Right.
Absolutely not. Money line rollover probably gets you around the -110, -125 area anyway. I kind of did the math here, laying -240, then you roll that over, and you're probably going to be laying around -200 in the finals, whether it's FAU. It's funny.
What do you think it'll be? FAU. Let's say it's FAU UConn in the final. What would they make that line?
Yeah, so I mean FAU. If you're looking from a KenPom perspective, they're the 3rd best team. They're 17th, while Miami's 22nd. So if it's UConn versus FAU, I would expect a 5.5.
Okay.
Or sorry, probably a 5.5 if they blow out Miami. Okay. If it's a close game, you're looking at 4.5 to 5. Right. Is that fair? Because FAU's a slightly better via KenPom and the other efficiency sites. If it's San Diego State, it's probably going to be 4. I would think that just based upon the defense, right?
Yeah, I think a lot. You made a good point. A lot depends on how UConn wins. If they have to eke it out, maybe people look towards Florida Atlantic as the fun story, the Cinderella story they want to root for. But if UConn wins again by 20, people are probably, I don't know. I would say people are going to trend towards UConn because they've been so dominant. But I could see some people falling in love. Sometimes people bet what they want to root for. I could see people wanting to get a piece of this Florida Atlantic story, which, look, if they got to the final, if they actually won the championship, which I still don't think they will, but if they won the championship, this is one of the great stories in the history of sports. It really is. I mean, it's on the short list when you think about 300-1. Cinderella can get to a Final Four and get to a championship game. We have not really seen a Cinderella win a championship in a non-major conference. This would be an all-time just historic sort of story here.
It certainly would. And you wonder about this total too a little bit here with this Miami game. I forgot to mention it. It's 149, I believe. KenPom's got 153. Haslametrics has it about 151. I would lean to the under in this as well. I think this is high for a Final Four game. I know that Miami does play a little bit of up fast-paced basketball, but UConn has amazing 3-point defense, ranking 13th in the league, and that's where Miami's going to have to do a dribble drive and try to get low. But guys like Sanogo, I think, is going to stop them. So I'm going to lean to the under on that.
I'd probably go over just because, like you said, Miami, they play fast. They score points. They give up points. So I'd probably, not that I haven't liked it enough to bet it, but I'd probably lean towards the over on this one.
Okay, no, fair enough. A little disagreement there. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what this line's going to be. Now, if it's going to be, let's just say Miami wins, and it's going to be Miami, Florida Atlantic. Oh my goodness. Jesus Christ. Right. I would assume just based upon the name, tournament in South Beach, right?
Right.
I think that Miami would be a slight favorite, maybe like -1, but I don't know. It's interesting because people do disagree with the efficiency sites. And
Yeah.
even though Miami's 22nd and Florida Atlantic 17th, I can't imagine Florida Atlantic being favored there. But Miami would have had the bigger win against
Miami will
UConn.
get a bump. Yeah, absolutely. Miami will get the bump because of UConn, but there's competing forces where people are going to fall in love with the Florida Atlantic story. And if they beat San Diego State, that's an impressive win. So it'd be fascinating to watch. The one little thing I would add before we move on is if you do like UConn Saturday night against Miami, bet them now because I'm actually surprised sixes haven't started to pop up. I think as you get closer to the game, you'll see more, public money. The guy that bets 50, $100 a game. Oh, UConn's playing. They kill everybody. I'm going to bet UConn. I think we get a 6. 50-50, we get a 6.5. I don't think we'll get a 7, but somewhere in between 6.5. I think this line goes up.
I do too. I think it'll close at 6. That's what I think. I agree with you. So if you like you like UConn, do it now. I prefer the money line rollover because if you like UConn now, you're betting them in the finals. That's the way I
Right.
look at it anyway. So take the future at -125, -110 if it's still up at Circa. And that's the way that we should approach this one. Let's move on to a little baseball, my man. I can't believe it. It's opening day tomorrow. I went to 3 spring training games already here, Will, and that was a good time watching. The pitch clock was very interesting. Guy on base, it's 20-second. Guy, no one on base, it's 15 seconds. It really sped up the game from my perspective. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe no more screwing around, shaking the ball up and down. They were really throwing the ball well. What are your thoughts on how that changes the scoring in the game from the first 5-inning perspective as well as the full game?
Yeah, no, I went to a few minor league games last summer, and the first thing you notice is the pitch clock because they had it last year, and it's really sort of seamless. Like you said, it speeds the game up, and I probably would have thought before I saw, oh, I don't like this. I'm sort of a baseball purist. You barely notice it. The guys get the ball, they pitch the ball. It's not, it doesn't really throw you off. It's really a welcomed idea. I know there's some people that don't like it. It's been actually more of a welcomed idea than I probably anticipated. As far as how does it affect betting, I really don't know. It's really gonna lower my volume in terms of how much I bet, number of bets. I just need to see it first because I've heard smart people make the case. Pitchers are going to be at the advantage. They're going to be on the attack. Hitters aren't used to it. I've heard the case that it's going to throw pitchers off. They're not going to have as much time to reload, and it's going to be an advantage for the hitters. I know there's another group of people that says, well, the starting pitchers will be okay, but the relievers are the guys that take a while. They're going to have to make pitches under pressure in short amounts of time, so it could affect them. I sort of just need to see it first. I think I don't think we even mentioned the thing that might even be more prevalent: no shifting. I mean, how many times have we seen the last 5 years where a guy hits a rocket up the middle, and our whole lives that's a base hit, and these past 5-6 years with more shifting, there's a guy standing there to catch the ball and throw him out. Can't really do that anymore, so the shift might be more prevalent than the clock. I think that the bigger bases, there's a lot trending towards offense. So if I was going to just bet anything, I'd probably trend towards overs here. But again, I'm going to take it sort of cautiously. I hope I'm going to try to take it cautious because I look at the cards. I might pick that game. I want to pick that game. But I think caution's probably the better idea here until we really see how this affects things.
That's true. And people have to remember that in April, it's colder and there's more prone to the unders. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen later in the year when it's hot in July and the ball's flying as well. What I think? I disagree with the whole pitchers thing. I think maybe in the beginning of the game, it might, pitchers that are powerful might be able to, just overpower the batters. But I think at the end of the game, it's really going to throw off some late relief pitchers, some closers. I think that, they're going to have to start throwing a lot quicker than they were rather than finishing the game. And it's almost like the batter kind of gets in his own head if he just sits there too long. I think that it's going to give him an advantage. So I kind of disagree with that. Maybe live might be a situation to look at. And I agree with you about laying off. But maybe like if the low scoring game, the bullpen's coming up, maybe a couple guys went yesterday, maybe a little bit more prone to bet the live over, Will.
Totally could see that. There's so many changes. There's so many moving parts at once that I'm just, again, caution's the thing for me where I like to bet. I don't like to guess. I don't, with the bigger bases, the no shift, the clock, there's just so many different variables here that I'm just probably going to take it a little easier than I usually would. Never a bad idea to take it early, take it easy early in the season anyway. Like you said, the weather, you never know what pitchers are sharp coming out of spring training. You're dealing with not ideal conditions. So It'll be interesting to watch. I just think, I wonder if it'll affect the handle at all. I do sense more excitement for baseball just in general. People excited about these changes. I just don't know from a betting standpoint if it's something where I'm going to come in with both fists and really, bet strong opinions based on what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like it too. I'm gonna kind of.
I have 8 plays for tomorrow. If you want me to get into my 8,
Well, I mean, I have one. Looking at tomorrow's slate, I found it, interesting. The lines came out pretty early on this, and obviously, during the year, it's this the night before, really early, the day before, around 3 to 5 o'clock on the Pacific time. Is you're starting to get these lines rolling out for the books. But anything stick out for you? Are you completely just eating popcorn, relaxing the first day, or is there any little dabble that you might want to give us?
I like DeGrom minus $1.30 against Nola. I think he's healthy. He's when he's healthy, he's the best pitcher in the sport. I know his time with the Mets did not end well in terms of all the injuries. And when he came back, he still pitched really well, just not like maybe 100% of DeGrom, but seems like he's healthy. That's a good lineup. They got Seager. They got a bunch of guys that I think are going to benefit from no shift. Harper's out for the Phillies. I think Hoskins is out for the Phillies. I think people are probably buying a little too high on the Phillies now. When this was like an 86, 87 win team last year, they were third place and they get hot and they go to a World Series. People forget this team did finish third. So DeGrom laying a cheap price here against Nola is one I'm interested in.
Yeah, and they did fix their bullpen a little bit more at Texas, didn't they?
Yeah, they needed to. They did.
And the reason I bring that up, it's minus 143 at first 5. So you can always take the first 5 if that worries you a little bit here. Yeah, I think the Phillies starting out with a little bit of a hangover, being in the World Series and all that last year. And I think that's a great look to possibly do that. And you could, if you get really cute, minus a half run in the first 5, you got plus 110. So I can see that.
I hate laying a half run in the
I know. It's not ideal, but it's at least they are playing a bottom of the 5th. So if you lay like the run line when it comes to a main game and they don't get to the bottom of the 9th and they're winning by 1, that's
you bring up a good point though. The first 5 might be the better way to go because these pitchers are not stretched out. You're going to see basically 4 or 5 inning performances. So if you really like it based on the starter, I mean these guys don't go 7, 8 innings anymore anyway. These guys really are not going to go that deep into the game, especially these first week or 2 into the season.
Yeah, I say 4 or 5 innings for sure these next couple. And part of the reason I took the first 5 on this under here, now, not like the Red Sox are an unders team, and they're definitely an overs team coming in here, but this is a higher one. It's at minus 112 on a few sites right now, minus 120 on DraftKings and a couple other. Baltimore versus the Red Sox. Gibson is pitching for Baltimore. Kluber is trying to revitalize himself here and pitching for Red Sox. But, this is based on a couple things. It's based on, A, it's the first game. Should be some nerves. And B, the weather's going to be very cold over there, And I looked it up here for the game, and I like this site here. I'm going to share my screen to show some people, one of the sites that I like to use here. You go to your screen. And that's Swish Analytics. And Swish Analytics, it kind of just gives you, the times and what's going to happen here during the game. Now, you're going to have 14.3 mile winds. It's not blowing near the monster. It's blowing out to the left field corner, which, it can hurt if you're, pulling the ball and it's actually curve and foul on you. Sometimes that's going to happen. So it's windy. It's not like exactly it's blowing out, but look at the temperature here, 37 degrees, 38 degrees. It's going to be very cold here. And that is not built for pitchers here for batters on either of these teams when it's this cold. The total of it's 5. That's high for a first 5, I believe, in the beginning of any season, no matter how much of a overs team that either of these might be. I kind of like the Orioles from last year. They're the kind of sneaky team that I bet on a lot last year, probably saved a little bit of my bankroll was being on the Orioles. But, I think being that with the bullpen, you might see them in the 5th inning. I think they should be fresh enough to get the job done and keep this under 5.
Like I said, I'm going to try to be cautious here, but as I look game by game, weather, I see the pitchers, the lines, my instinct is to want to fire. So I'm going to have to exhibit a little self-control tomorrow.
Yeah, exhibit self-control for sure and be very careful. But thank you for that one on DeGrom here. Finally not injured. Let's hope that keeps it this way here and, bring some luck here for the Rangers here coming up. Well, good stuff for the MLB. We're going to sit back and see how it is. And Will's going to be on plenty of shows on the Gold Boys, on VSiN, to discuss, what his thoughts are just kind of coming into the season. So make sure you turn into that. But before you go, Will, I want to talk a little NFL draft. Now, I know it's early. You might not have dabbled too much. I think we briefly brought it up maybe 3-4 weeks ago when you were on last time. But one thing stuck out to me here, and it's looking at, and not all these lines are out. There's a few out here, but I'm thinking about tight ends right now, Will. And this actually was pretty interesting to me. Michael Mayer, he was kind of the number one tight end even before the season started.
Is this the guy from the Halloween movies, or is it somebody different?
Michael Mayer. Yeah, right. Mike Myers. He's the guy with the leather face. So Notre Dame tight end, always coming in the draft. His competition is really Dalton Kincaid, and Dalton Kincaid coming off back injury for Utah. I don't know what these GMs think all the time, but to be honest with you, I don't know how you can pick a guy like Dalton Kincaid over Mayer, being that he had the back problems, because that is more getting GM fired situation.
Yep. It's a good angle
by taking that chance. And so right now you can get Mayer at -110. You can get Kincaid at +125. I like Mayer at the -110 here. Now, if you look at the third guy in Darnell Washington, maybe you're considering him at +380. He played for Georgia, Will. Here's the problem with that. You're the GM. You're the Lions, right? The Lions need a tight end. The Bengals need a tight end. Are you going to pick the second best tight end from a team?
Right.
Because Burton was far and above, probably better than, let's just say he's better than all these guys. I think anybody would agree with that. But still, you're not going to pick the second best guy from a team as your number one pick. It's just not a good look. So you're going to pick the injured guy that just hurt his back and was out for a long time. He's still not running yet. Or you're going to take the second best guy on the team of Georgia, or you're going to take Mayer, who's kind of been there the whole time, at a pretty good 40 at 4.7. And
he's going to be a hell of a pro too. I really like him.
Yeah, he's going to be a hell of a pro. So I actually bet Mayer, and I think that they make the smart decision and the safe decision here to get a proven guy who has been already ranked number one for the last year and a half, Will.
My only issue with that is I got to find it, because Connecticut does not book the draft. A lot of these books, they got burned last year at big numbers on some of these. So finding prices on all these is not as easy. These this is why bookies are cockroaches, because they never want to lose anything.
Yeah.
They win in all these other markets. They lose in one. It's we can't post that anymore. So it's not as easy to find these, but I totally co-sign on that. I think it's a good angle. And if I could come along that market, I think it's a great bet.
All right. Well, send me a text afterwards if you're interested.
Got it.
Try to see if I find out for you. So cool. So glad we have some agreement there. Now, here's the quarterback thing I think is really weird. And it's not saying I'm going to say go ahead and make a bet or not, but it's so funny how Bryce Young was the consensus favorite all the way up to the combine, right? Well, what the hell has changed since then? Everyone knew he wasn't tall.
Right.
Everyone knew that. Everyone knew he wasn't extremely heavy. And of course, his weight was water weight at 204. He probably 195, maybe soaking wet. I don't know. But it's so funny how this all of a sudden changes to Stroud. All of a sudden Stroud's -330. Now, I'm not saying that Stroud's not going to be the first quarterback picked, but Jesus, man, Ohio State quarterbacks really have a lot against them when it comes to NFL performances. And it's the same system. Ryan Day, they've been running for a long time there, really. I like Stroud. I suppose he might be number one in mine. I still got to dig in a little bit deeper before I do my quarterback rankings. But man, it's just so funny now. Bryce Young's at +225. What did the dude do? Really nothing. This is all speculation. And you wonder if a team like Carolina that would trade up and give the farm to the Bears, if they were really thinking CJ Stroud there. I don't know, because it doesn't seem like it just seems a little strange to me, does it not?
They've signed a bunch of guys that, Miles Sanders, I think Thielen, they got a bunch of guys that suggest it's a win now move. So I think he can count Richardson out. I never bought the idea that somebody's going to draft up and especially move up to draft a project like that, a guy who really just didn't play well last year. So I'm pretty confident it's between Stroud and Young. Look, anybody's guess. I have no idea. I really don't. I think you make up a good point. This market is wonky. It's back and forth. We've seen this the past few years with the favorites flipped a bunch. It flipped a few times last year with different guys. So, when in doubt, I'd probably just take the plus money here. I have no idea who's going first.
All right, me either. Real quick, the wide receivers here. How bad did this wide receiver draft get, man? I mean, it's It's looking pretty freaking bad here. You got Jackson Smith and Jigga, who hasn't played much in the last
Right.
2 years. You know, people speculate that he was really hurt. People speculate he was holding on for the draft. Maybe so, but I guess he ran a 4.48 40, which is not exactly that fast, for a receiver who was going to be going number one. And then his real competition was Jordan Addison, who ran the same thing about, he's only 6 feet tall. You figure he'd be in the 4.4, 4.38 range. No, he runs a 4.49 40 or something like that. Why are these receivers so slow? And then you got Quentin Johnson, who's the big guy from TCU, 6'4". He's at plus 550, which I think maybe he should be the number one guy. Then I look at Jalen Hyatt at 20-1 on FanDuel. I'm like, why not him? He at least ran a 4.4 40 and he's 6 feet tall. He played for Tennessee. He did great. He did just as good as anyone else. So my point is, first of all, this receiver draft stinks. I'm going to probably be looking at, maybe playing the under to the total number of receivers, because you usually get a pretty big number, 5.5.
Is that market up?
It's not up yet, my friend. I'm waiting on it. But I just think that, if you're going to take a shot on somebody, I wouldn't mind looking at Jalen Hyatt and Quentin Johnson, maybe bet them both, trying to fade the rest of the field there. You get plus 550, plus 2,000.
Yeah, that Hyatt 20-1 certainly is intriguing in a market where, Smith and Jigba was plus 350 not that long ago. Now he's the favorite. So there's a lot of guesswork on the from the bookmaker standpoint on these markets, which is why they don't like to book it, which is why there's value. So yeah, you could certainly talk me into Hyatt 20-1. Absolutely.
Yeah, Hyatt at 20-1. Well, good stuff, my man. We are out of time, Will. Thank you so much for coming on, breaking down some of these sports here. We got baseball going on. We got the Final Four. Where could our listeners get your great information and media coming up to these big games?
Yep, I'm on VSiN 5 or 6 times a week, and Gold Boys Discord and twitch.tv/Gold Network during weekdays, 1 Eastern. We got shows Tuesday and Thursday, so look for me there. Kev, you're the best. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, man, appreciate it so much. Make sure you guys check out Will at Gold Boys and at VSiN.